Hey kids, this is Jurassic James, and on this Jurassic James Explains, looking at Chasmosaurus. The name Chasmosaurus essentially means chasm lizard or giant hole lizard, because when you see most horned dinosaurs, the ceratopsians, they have this giant frill here. Only Triceratops has a solid frill. All the others have bones going along here, here, and here, making large holes here in the skeleton. And so they're full of meat and life. So the idea is that when they found the skeleton, it had these frills here. It's a giant chasm, right? Which actually was the root word, same root word. Now, one thing to point out with Chasmosaurus too is that it is a close relative of Triceratops in that they're in the same group family basically. And I'll go over that in more detail in a minute. But the same rules apply. I have the older models here, new ones here. This is actually my first Chasmosaurus, which was the first thing I bought on eBay. Back, I know kids today have the Amazon and eBay and all other, when eBay first came out, it was a big deal. And so the idea here was, I remember getting this, and it's a good model. It has the iconic features. You have the three horns here, the beak. The horns are not very long. They're compared to Triceratops. There's 5 toes in the front, 4 in the back. Those are all features that make this animal a ceratopsian. One thing to point out too is the tail is pretty short. I mean, it's a little longer than I think it should be, but it's shorter than most ceratopsians. We're going to see one later on. It's not that is too long, and that often case these on the side of the frill here, actually all of the toy makers put just random numbers. There's actually 10, and there's 10 if you count it. That's actually pretty accurate. No one else does that. And so one thing to point out with this guy too is that the overall build, the animal was only about 15 feet long. And so basically where we think of Triceratops as this rhinoceros-sized animal, elephant-sized animal, this is more rhinoceros-sized. It's a smaller version of and it lived earlier. So where Triceratops lived 66 to 70 million years ago, this guy lived around 75, 76 million years ago in Alberta, Canada. The first specimens were discovered in the first specimens that we know now that were Chasmosaurus were discovered in 1897. They were given a different name. Me and the other specimens were found and given different names, but it was not until 1914 where the name Chasmosaurus, as we know it, came into play. And so I already kind of went over this guy a little bit. The next model I received was, if you go to Michael's Hobby Lobby, there's Safari Tubes or teacher supply stores, and they had this little Chasmosaurus in there. So it's kind of a cool thing. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, it's the frill. In my opinion, it should be more see how this one is more rectangular. It does spread out more to the top. This guy does way more. It should be more narrow on the top, in my opinion. But given as a small figure like this is really cool to have. As a kid, I would use something like this as a baby of the specimen. The truth is, the babies would have smaller horns, little nublets, everything would be reduced in features. My example of this is, look at a human baby. They have all the parts of a human adult, but they're different proportions, right? And so same thing would be applied here. The next one I received was this one from they're in Walmart, I think, and I see them in dollar stores too. And so here's this it's kind of interesting that I'm pretty sure most people think it's a Triceratops, but it's pretty interesting to see this, this species being presented, or genus being presented this way. Overall, let's see, it has 4 fingers and 4 toes. So the toes are correct. The number of fingers are wrong. And I say, and even if the first 3 or 4 have claws, the 5th one shouldn't, or at least be enough. Something to see it's there. When you see if you ever see a Chasmosaurus skeleton, I always say Google image of skeletons of these animals in museums, or go to the museum. Even better, support local science. They have more elongated fingers. So we think of, people often depict and they make toys of these horned dinosaurs more like elephant feet, but maybe a little bit longer toes. These guys' toes are way longer than that. They're living in swampy environments sometimes, not like alligator Louisiana swamp, but Montana, South Dakota, Alberta, those areas were like floodplains. And so they're walking on in a different way. They're not elephants. They're big like elephants, but they're not elephants, right? So anyway, this one's pretty neat. The red eyes give kind of interesting. I guess in my mind, you're looking at it at night through a lens, and it's gonna hit, Then there was, I can't remember. This is the same kind of company that's kind of making these generic cheaper figures. I don't remember where it's from, but let's see. There are 4 toes, and I want to say 4 fingers. The toy seems, and it could be 2 fingers or 1, I don't know. But again, very neat figure in itself. Hits the main points. Tail's pretty decent. This guy here, I can't remember where I got this one, but it's essentially a repaint, roughly, of this, but it's slightly different molding. I don't know. It's pink. That was different. I said, yeah, I'll buy that. It's cheap. And so the tail is considerably longer. And that's something, again, with ceratopsians, they don't have long tails. They're the only dinosaurs whose toys, I say, the tails are too long. All the other toys, tails are too short. But for ceratopsians, that's true. My first, I would say safari too, but my first science-y model is this guy here. Actually, only because this one is a science, safari is more science-based, but it's not a high-end model. This is the highest-end model of Chasmosaurus I have. It is a, let's see, 2009 with company Collect A. Makes sense. So Collect A, as I mentioned before, always make unusual species. Every company makes T-Rex, Triceratops, Velociraptor every year. Collect A makes different models, right? And so this one is the one I use, I think, on my website. That's my icon for the species. So again, hits all the major points. Actually, are there 10 points? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Missed it by that much. But the idea here is that this animal, again, I'm not trying to make you look at it as a rhinoceros, because in your human brain you'll think, well, everything rhinoceroses do, they do. It's not the way it works. But as far as this kind of build, there, or because rhinos usually solitary, these can be in groups. There's several specimens known of Chasmosaurus, so it's not a dinosaur where some weeks I'm like, here's this dinosaur we have 6 bones for. This is the one we know a lot of, right? And so I will now move on to the one that's the revealing, the unboxing, the kids call it, what the kids call it these days. And using the official scissors to Jurassic James, this is the easiest unboxing with these Jurassic World size figures. Let's see. And that's it. That's the unboxing. How about that? Now, as far as the box itself goes, we'll appreciate this. It's the Strike Catcher, Combat Extreme, Chasmosaurus, Jurassic World, Chaos Theory, Epic Evolution. So there's the box there for all the things that people who care about that. And here it is. So the gimmick or the thing is that I think you push that and the head goes up, which is not a bad move for a ceratopsian. So I'll give you that. Let's see, the DNA code is right there. That seems to matter a lot to kids, so there you go. There are 4 toes, very good. There are 4 fingers. Now the claws, one thing to point out with the hands or limbs of a ceratopsian is that generally speaking, the first 3 are definitely largest and have claws. Depending on the species, they have the next 2, it depends, right? So sometimes they have a 4th and 5th that have no claw, but usually a 5th toe or a finger, 4-limb digit, is usually the most reduced. And so with Chasmosaurus, they usually depict them more elongated than that, but that's fine. Given what it is, okay. So the only thing is that I guess because it's the gimmick is that it does that. So it's like they're always ready to fight each other or something, right? One thing I want to point out is how the horn, it goes straight up on this one, the original Jurassic Park Chasmosaurus, and how this one has the horns going up. That has to do more with and these horns kind of go up forward. Those are the kind of things that a paleontologist writing a paper would say these are different species. And I'm not going to go over species in much, but it pertains somewhat to the time period it's found in, right? So with that being said, I'm going to move you guys over here. Now, this is from the Dinosaur Park Formation in Canada, one of the most prolific fossil sites in Canada, particularly for dinosaurs, as the name implies, Dinosaur Park. I will use you. The new one. We'll do the new one because it's a toy. So, new toy, right? We're all kids. So, Dinosaur Park Formation. So, who with this guy? Now, one thing to point out with ecology, I always put together, here are the animals that are living in the same site. And that's because in many cases you find a pit and they're the same rock layer or whatever, right? And so, who would be eating Chasmosaurus? Well, there's this guy named Spletosaurus. This is a 2021 safari. So there's a Spletosaurus. I think that's my best. Yeah, it's my biggest Spletosaurus. It's the biggest one I have so far. Gorgosaurus, which is from Papo. So these 2 animals would be the most likely predators of this animal, depending on where he is in the environment. Also, he's sharing environment with the Thyreophorine, the shield-bearing Edmontonia. This little notosaur here. This is again a 2010 Collect A figure. Then we have Euplocephalus, which is the precursor to Ankylosaurus. Euplocephalus means well-armored head, so that's kind of a cool thing to point out because they have armor on their on the head, like here, and even some armor pieces on the eyelids. It's really neat. But again, think of Ankylosaurus, but smaller and different arrangement of armor. This is from Battan, Battan, from Target, actually, years ago. And now this is where it gets weird. These animals are pretty in the same environment, depending on. So in the Dinosaur Park Formation, there's a lot of dinosaurs found there, and this is in the Campanian period of the Late Cretaceous period. So the Campanian age. So say here's if the history of Earth is from here to here, and here's humans on top. There's like bacteria and slime, and the Earth, Earth forming here. We have the three major we have the Paleozoic, Mesozoic, and Cenozoic. Paleo meaning prehistorics, zoo, Mesozoic, Middle Zoo, Cenozoic, recent Zoo. We're in the Cenozoic right now. The Mesozoic is the age of dinosaur, age for reptiles. There are three subsections: the Triassic, Jurassic, and Cretaceous. All right. So the idea is that within the Cretaceous period, there are two main divisions, upper and lower, and within each of those, there are 6 subdivisions. So the Cretaceous period is the longest time period of the Phanerozoic, the time of since the first bugs, basically. And so it is like 80 million years roughly. And so there's a lot of stuff going on in the Cretaceous period. And it is the most fossiliferous time for dinosaurs in general. So within the late Cretaceous, there are 6 subdivisions. The last one's called Maastrichtian. That is where T-Rex and Triceratops live. Before that is the Campanian. That is where Chasmosaurus live. The problem with this is the Campanian is in North America has an explosion of dinosaur species. I mean, there's a lot of them being found, right? And so just because it's from the Campanian in North America doesn't mean live together, right? And so within that dinosaur park formation, there's there's different layers of it. So these guys, for the most part, are found with Chasmosaurus. If I remember correctly, this is a Corythosaurus. This is a safari from 1991, Corythosaurus. A Greptosaurus from 2013 safari. Oh, appreciate it, love it, look at it. Ooh la la. A Parasaurolophus from Battan, which doesn't say a year, but from Target. I've got it from Target. And a Lambeosaurus, which is a harder to find species in general, 2009 Collect Day. So in this part of the Campanian, these species kind of run, for the most part, the same way as Chasmosaurus. You'll see them in the same environments, or same time at least. These guys are found in the lower part, and these guys are found in the upper part. So there's one species of Chasmosaurus that's pretty well documented, Belli, and they live with these guys. They're found in the same layer. There's an earlier species that may live with these guys. So again, these are things that would have been Chasmosaurus adjacent. Why is that important to you? Why am I going into this much detail? Living 75 million years ago, Chasmosaurus was never eaten by T-Rex. T-Rex lived between 70 and 66 million years ago. Chasmosaurus is before that, so it was eaten by these guys. So that means that all of this stuff died before T-Rex and Triceratops walked the earth. They're a different time layer, right? That being said, the other very famous predator from dinosaur time is Allosaurus. Now, if this guy lives 75 million years ago, this one lives 145 million years ago. 45, yeah. So that's like 70 million years older. So Allosaurus, all the Allosauruses that ever lived, quote, lived, died, and got fossilized 70 million years before the first Chasmosaurus showed up. And it's relatives here. So that's why I kind of always hound on the idea of time periods and environments and conditions, because it's something that today when you look at documentaries and TV shows, well, not documentaries, but TV shows, you'll see dinosaurs all living together in the same time, but they really don't. There's only certain ones that are found even remotely near each other, right? And that's why I always put that out. Now, that being said, I'm going to move these guys over. I'm going to go over to the family tree of Chasmosaurus and explain why and how that matters, if you seem to care. So, I mean, you're here, so I assume you care. I hope you care. You're like, hate watching the video. You're like, I can't stand this guy, you know. So, family tree. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to make this make sense as much as we can using whales. Because why not? Because you're probably wondering, why are there whales in my Chasmosaurus video? So here's the thing. Say you are a marine biologist and you're looking at ocean things with backbones. That first of all narrows down a lot of stuff. And so in the ocean, we have all these whales today. And you're trying to classify everything, right? And you say, wait a minute, well, how do we start separating these things out? Well, the one thing you notice about whales is that these guys are all in the ocean, right? They have flippers. But unlike sharks and pufferfish or any fish, these guys breathe air. So the fact that sharks and fish are underwater all the time, for the most part, breathing through their gills in the water, that makes them different than all the whales. So you put the whales as your out group. They're further away than this. They're not, these two are fish, not whales. Within your whales, these are not to scale, but here's a gray whale, a sea whale, a humpback whale, a bottlenose dolphin, a blue whale, sperm whale, a beluga, and an orca. So these are all the things that people consider whales or whale adjacent in today's world. Well, one thing to point out with them is that looking at their features, so, they all have flippers that go up and down, where sharks and fish go side to side. But the difference, but what's the big deal? They all breathe air. They're the same kind of flipper, so they're very similar in that sense. But they have different feeding styles. What I mean by that is the gray whale, the sea whale, the humpback whale, and the blue whale are what we call baleen whales. They're filter feeders. They open their mouths. They have no teeth like we have. Humans have dentin teeth. They don't have that. They open their mouths. Water flows in. They close their baleen. They push the water out, and all the little krill and little microorganisms that are there are eaten by the whale. That's something that they have in common. All of these guys, not counting our fish, these guys all have teeth. The dolphin, the orca, or killer whale, sperm whale, and the beluga. These guys do have teeth. They do not. So you see how they're all not fish. They're not breathing water, but they're also different from each other. And even within this group, I would say marine biologists would say that dolphins and orcas are closer together than these guys, right? Because technically orcas are just really big dolphins by many definitions. And so you're breaking them down by different groups more and more. Okay, now that you get that, a few years ago I did a video on horned dinosaurs. And so I want you to see the idea of that we look at these modern animals that we can still see, we can still go find and take pictures of and etc. And we're applying these concepts to fossilized things. Now, the first thing you're wondering is, how can you do that? We can't see how they breed. We can't see their color, but we do have the features of their skeletons. So what a paleontologist will do, and people who are PhDs, this is what they do. I have the fun of telling you all these fun facts and connections and going on digs and stuff like that. But people who are in the PhD programs, they're looking at how you tell two species apart, right? Much more detail there. And what I'm going to point out here is that here we have a Ionosaurus, which is my favorite horned dinosaurs. It's called, it's 2012 Safari. I like it because its name means bison lizard, but it has this hooked horn. It goes down. I don't know why. I just like that a lot. We have a Pachyrhinoceros, so I've done a video on before. I mentioned it before. Let's see, 2014 Safari. We have our Chasmosaurus, of course. And I'll use the science one, not the Jurassic World one. No, I like this one's size. The scale's better. I don't know. The Triceratops, which is Papo. Remember, I bought this from Dinosaur Park, the place I put in the description. There's a Styracosaurus, who sometimes Styracosaurus does live in Alberta, Canada, with Chasmosaurus. They are sometimes contemporary, so good point. We have here Triceratops, made famous by Jurassic World. This is a gift from the Vanderpools, friends of mine. This is a 2015. Yeah, I used to have my dinosaurs in the museum, in the classroom, and occasionally some will go missing. And I kind of was a polite message to the family saying, hey, I'm not, no hard feelings, but please, if your kid happen to grab it, let me know. And this family was like, oh, we'll buy you a new one. They were just really nice. Triceratops, which is a 2015 Safari. Then we have one that was once considered, this is Utah Ceratops, which is collect a 2012. There we go. And we have 2012. Yeah, 2012 Safari. I have trouble saying this one's name. It's VAGA Ceratops, like Vega Ceratops. This is one of the ones that they found. They thought it was a Chasmosaurus, and then someone looked at the details of the skeleton and said, no, different species. So kind of show you how important that is. The Torosaurus, of course, which is a who is this? Who are you? Who made you? Oh, Germany. Oh, it's a Schleit. And the Triceratops, which is the 2018 Safari. All right. So here's these guys. These are contemporary. They live at the same time, right? So if you are a horned dinosaur expert, and I encourage you to go to Montana University there, they have a wonderful display with the skulls, kind of like you have deer heads on a wall in a hunting lodge. They have horned dinosaur skulls on the wall with a family tree below it. Kind of see how they relate to each other. So if you are a paleontologist and you're looking at these guys and you say, okay, yeah, they're all horned dinosaurs. They're all some different time periods, different locations, but, well, not periods, different time ages. But how will you classify them as relatives? Just like my whale friends, you say, hey, they're like the fish and the shark breed have gills. That's you excluding them from the group. You would exclude the duckbills, the horned dinosaurs, the long necks, etc. They're not duckbills and thyreophorine, the armored dinosaurs. They're not horned dinosaurs. Once you're here, remember the whales had the baleen whales and ones with teeth? Well, with the ceratopsians, there's two major groups. The centrosaurines, which are these guys. In general, the centrosaurines don't have three horns. And they have usually, in their initial description, they have smaller horns but on the face or no horn. But as you're saying, yes, for these two that's true. But for these guys, like, they have pretty big horns on their nose. And they usually have bigger ornaments on the back here. Whereas with the Chasmosaurine group, and yes, Chasmosaurus is the family name of this group. It should be Triceratops, but we've naming. Anyway, the point is, so these guys have usually elongated, more, they have bigger frills. Notice how theirs are more round. Theirs are more elongated. And they have usually three horns in the face, like actual three near-sized horns in the face. There are, the people who do this for a living, there are a lot of more details that I'm not telling you. But the main thing to point out, if you're looking at these guys, you can kind of see some family resemblance compared to them. They look so just like our tooth whales and our baleen whales. You're seeing how they break them down. And what a paleontologist does in a paper will be describing all of these things in much detail, much more detail. It's kind of like how you make a cake. There is a recipe you have to go by, and not only what's in the cake, but at what points in times and temperatures you do things. Well, for a scientific paper, you're going to write down, essentially, here are all these things that are needed to make this classified as a ceratopsian. So, say we find a new species, and you're like, well, which side is it, of horned dinosaur? And you will look at these features it has and say, oh, it falls in this group or that group. For the most part, it makes sense. I said that expecting a response on the YouTube channel. So that's what makes Chasmosaurus interesting, is that this name Chasmosaurine is a very famous dinosaur name. And then you say, why haven't you done a video yet? Well, they didn't have a new figure yet. And now I've done that, and we're all here, and I've hit all the main points. So with that being said, I'll see you guys next week. Thank you very much.